I never thought it would come to this. My name is Jason, and for the past 10 years I thought I had a solid marriage with Melissa. We built our lives together, from our cramped one-bedroom apartment in the city to our lovely little house in the suburbs. We were that typical couple who looked perfect on paper, but as it turns out, things weren't as rosy as they seemed. I noticed something was off a few months ago. At first, it was subtle, small changes in her behavior that I brushed aside because I wanted to believe the best in her. Melissa was always a bit of a social butterfly, but lately, she'd been even more withdrawn, keeping her phone glued to her side and rushing home later from work events. My gut said something wasn't right, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions. That's when I started putting together the pieces. She was always busy with work, but I noticed the events she talked about were vague and suspiciously scheduled on weekends. I tried to engage her about it, asking why she seemed so preoccupied, but she waved it off, claiming she was under pressure. "You know how it is, babe, just trying to get ahead," she'd say, her voice a little too bright, a little too rehearsed. The turning point came when I decided to snoop around her things. I didn't want to invade her privacy, I really didn't, but the feeling that something was deeply wrong gnawed at me. One day, I found a receipt for a hotel in town that I was sure I had never heard her mention. I studied it, and my heart raced as I recognized the name of a DJ whose parties she had become obsessed with lately. The signs all pointed to something I didn't want to believe. My wife was cheating on me. I confronted her after I found that receipt. The whole thing felt surreal as I stood in front of her, the words tumbling out of my mouth, "Melissa, are you cheating on me?" Her expression turned to one of shock, but then it shifted to annoyance, like a child caught with their hand in the cookie jar. "What kind of ridiculous accusation is that?" she snapped, crossing her arms. "You know I've been busy, just work." But the truth unraveled quickly. She couldn't keep her restraint. "It's just a phase," she said at first. Then her story shifted. "You wouldn't understand my life, Jason. It's complicated." Each excuse was lamer than the last, and I could feel my heart breaking as I watched the woman I loved twist in the wind trying to save face. The more she talked, the more furious I became. Anger boiled inside me, and for a moment I thought I would explode. How could she lie so easily? "You're lying, Melissa. I found the hotel receipt. This is not just work." I shouted, my voice echoing in the silence of our living room. She stared at me like a deer caught in headlights, and for a moment I thought she might confess. Instead, she tossed her hair back defiantly. "Fine, what do you want me to say? I'm living my life, Jason. You should be happy for me." Happy for her. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The betrayal felt like a punch to the gut, and it sent me spiraling. I thought about all the times I had supported her, the sacrifices I made for her career. And here she was, openly flaunting an affair with some punk DJ. It felt surreal, like a bad movie I was trapped in. As the confrontation progressed, I felt a mix of emotions: anger, disbelief, sadness. I never expected to be in this position, feeling utterly blindsided. My mind raced with thoughts of our shared memories, birthdays, vacations, and the life we built together, now cracked beyond repair. I needed a plan. I needed to do something to regain control of my life. Through the haze of emotions, one thing became clear: I wouldn't let this define me. I would not be the victim. I would make sure she saw the man I was capable of becoming. I just needed to figure out how. I spent the next few days in a daze, trying to process what I had learned. I felt like I had lost something precious, but there was also a spark of determination starting to flicker within me. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming my life and proving to myself that I could rise from the ashes of this betrayal. With each passing moment, my resolve grew stronger. I was going to reinvent myself, and it would be a journey that would leave Melissa watching from the sidelines as I became the man I was always meant to be. I decided then and there that I would become the biggest event planner in town, and I would make sure she knew it. As I plotted my next steps, a strange sense of excitement began to replace the anger. What started as a painful betrayal would soon turn into my greatest opportunity. After the confrontation with Melissa, I threw myself into planning my future. I spent hours researching event planning, watching videos, reading articles, and connecting with people in the industry. I knew I had a talent for organizing and creating memorable experiences. I just needed to channel my focus into something productive. It was a way to distract myself from the heartbreak while also striking back against the betrayal. I started small. The first event I organized was my niece's birthday party. I took charge of everything: decorations, games, food, and even the entertainment. I transformed our backyard into a magical wonderland filled with colorful balloons, a face painter, and a mini petting zoo. The kids had a blast, and the adults were impressed. I received compliments on my ability to create such a fun environment, and for the first time since the confrontation, I felt a spark of joy and purpose. With newfound confidence, I began to network with local vendors and venues. I reached out to photographers, caterers, and florists, sharing my vision and gaining their support. I started an Instagram page to showcase my work, posting photos of the birthday party and any other small events I organized. Slowly but surely, people began to take notice. Word of mouth spread, and I started getting inquiries for other events. One evening, while scrolling through Instagram, I came across a post that made my pulse quicken. It was a photo of Melissa at one of the DJ's events, looking all dolled up and clearly having a good time. She was smiling, laughing, and surrounded by a crowd of people. My heart sank, but at the same time, I felt a rush of determination. I was going to show her that I could thrive without her. I could create a life she would envy. As weeks rolled into months, I began to find my footing in the event planning world. I secured a few gigs, including weddings and corporate events, and my reputation started to grow. People were impressed by my creativity and attention to detail, and it felt incredible to watch my hard work pay off. I was no longer the guy who faded into the background. I was becoming a force in my own right. Melissa, on the other hand, seemed oblivious to the changes happening in my life. I was sure she still thought of me as the nice guy, someone she could walk all over. That was the very perception I was determined to change. I wanted her to see the new Jason, someone unrecognizable to the man she had betrayed. One night, as I was prepping for a big wedding I had organized, I received a call from one of my clients. They were thrilled with how everything was coming together. The excitement in their voice was intoxicating, and I couldn't help but smile. I hung up and took a moment to reflect on how far I'd come. I no longer felt like a victim. I was reclaiming my narrative. The day of the wedding arrived, and it was nothing short of a success. Everything went off without a hitch. The couple was overjoyed, and the guests were raving about the event. As I stood back and took it all in, I felt a deep sense of accomplishment wash over me. This was just the beginning. I was building something amazing, and I couldn't wait to see where it would lead. Then came the moment I had been waiting for. A few days later, I received an invitation to an industry gala, an event where the who's who of the local scene would be present. It was a chance to network, showcase my work, and most importantly, I knew Melissa would be there. She still had connections in the industry, and I felt a rush of adrenaline at the thought of her seeing me in my element, thriving in a way she never thought I would. I decided to go all out for this event. I rented a sleek suit, something I wouldn't have even considered before. As I looked in the mirror, I felt like a new man. This was the turning point I needed, the moment to show her that her actions had not broken me. I was ready to face her and the world, exuding confidence and strength. The night of the gala arrived, and I stepped into the venue, my heart pounding with a mix of nerves and excitement. I spotted Melissa almost immediately, her face lighting up as she laughed with a group of people. She looked stunning, but I felt a sense of satisfaction wash over me. I wasn't here to compete with her. I was here to own my success. I made my way through the crowd, shaking hands and introducing myself to potential clients. As I mingled, I caught Melissa's eye. She immediately froze, her smile faltering as she recognized me. I could see the surprise and maybe even a hint of regret on her face. I approached her confidently, an easy smile playing on my lips. "Melissa, great to see you," I said, extending my hand for a shake. "How have you been?" She recovered quickly, feigning a casual demeanor. "Oh, busy with work. Same old, same old. And you, still dabbling in events." Her tone was condescending, as if she didn't believe I had made any real progress. "Actually, I have a few exciting projects coming up," I replied, keeping my tone upbeat. Just wrapped up a wedding last week that went amazingly well. You should check out my Instagram. It's gaining some traction. Her expression shifted, a mix of surprise and disbelief flashing across her face. I could sense that she was trying to gauge how serious I was. The tension was palpable, but I could hardly contain my satisfaction. I felt empowered in that moment, standing before the woman who had betrayed me, showing her a side of me she had never appreciated. As the night progressed, I continued to network, and every time I glanced at Melissa, I could see the wheels turning in her head. She was realizing that I wasn't the same guy she had taken for granted. I was evolving, and she had a front row seat to my transformation. I can't say I didn't feel a twinge of satisfaction when I overheard her talking to one of her friends. "I can't believe how well he's doing. He's really killing it." Good. She needed to see me thriving, not just for her sake, but for my own. I no longer wanted to dwell in the pain she had caused. I was rising above it, creating a life that was far more fulfilling than the one we had built. Together, I was ready for more success, more happiness, and more fulfillment. And as the night came to a close, I couldn't help but feel that this was just the beginning. I had proven to myself that I could thrive, and I was excited to see what lay ahead. Melissa might have made her choice, but it was my time to shine. The weeks following the gala were a whirlwind of activity for me. With each passing day, my event planning business gained more momentum. As I immersed myself in the creative process of curating unforgettable experiences for my clients, I discovered a whole new world that brought me joy and fulfillment. The thrill of planning weddings, corporate events, and even birthday parties became my escape, my passion, and my new purpose. I was fortunate enough to land a contract with a local company for their annual corporate retreat. It was a big deal, and I knew that nailing this event would solidify my reputation as a serious player in the industry. I poured my heart and soul into the planning, crafting a vision that would leave a lasting impression on everyone involved. As I worked tirelessly to ensure every detail was perfect, I couldn't help but reflect on how far I had come since the confrontation with Melissa. The early days after the betrayal had been filled with anger and sadness, but now I felt a sense of pride in my ability to rise above the pain and create something beautiful. On the day of the retreat, I arrived at the venue early to oversee the setup. I walked through the space, taking in the carefully arranged tables, the elegant floral centerpieces, and the soft lighting that created a warm and inviting atmosphere. I felt a rush of excitement as I envisioned the event coming to life. As guests began to arrive, I greeted them with a smile, feeling more confident than ever. I navigated the crowd, ensuring everything ran smoothly and that everyone was enjoying themselves. It was exhilarating to see people laughing, mingling, and genuinely having a good time. I was proud of the atmosphere I had created. In the midst of the festivities, I caught sight of Melissa across the room. She was there with a couple of her work colleagues, and I could see her scanning the crowd. When our eyes met, I felt a jolt of mixed emotions. Part of me wanted to march over and confront her about her betrayal one more time, but the other part of me was content to simply let her witness my success from afar. She looked beautiful as always, but there was something different about her demeanor. She seemed nervous, glancing around as if she were searching for something, or perhaps someone. I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction, knowing that I was building a life without her and doing it well. After a few hours, I found myself deep in conversation with a client who was interested in hearing me for their upcoming wedding. As we discussed details, I felt a sense of pride in my ability to connect with people and understand their desires. I realized that this was what I was meant to do, create unforgettable moments for others. Just then, Melissa approached me. My heart raced as she stepped into my space, her expression a mix of curiosity and hesitation. "Hey Jason," she said, her voice surprisingly soft. "I just wanted to say congratulations on the event. It looks amazing." I forced a smile, maintaining my composure. "Thanks, Melissa. I appreciate that. I've heard some really great things about you," she continued, her eyes darting around as if she were searching for a way to connect. I didn't know you were capable of all this." The words stung, but I kept my cool. "Yeah, well, it turns out I had a few tricks up my sleeve." I tried to sound nonchalant, but deep down I felt a surge of pride. I was doing this with or without her. I was just surprised. "I always thought you were more laid back," she said, a hint of defensiveness creeping into her tone. "People change, Melissa. I guess I just had to find my footing." I leaned in slightly, letting my words sink in. "You should know that sometimes it takes a little push to realize your true potential." Her lips tightened, and I could see the wheels turning in her mind. Was she regretting her choices? Did she miss the man she had taken for granted? I couldn't help but revel in the moment. Seeing the realization dawn on her face was priceless. Before she could respond, my client interrupted us, and I quickly redirected my attention to them. "Anyway, I'd love to help you plan your wedding. Let's discuss some ideas." I could see Melissa's expression shift to one of annoyance, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of victory. I was winning this game of life, one event at a time. As the retreat wrapped up, I received multiple compliments from guests about the event. People were genuinely impressed with my work, and I felt a swell of pride as I thanked them for their kind words. I realized that I had transformed my pain into motivation, and it was paying off in ways I never imagined. Days turned into weeks, and my business continued to grow. I was gaining traction in the industry, and soon enough, I found myself with more clients than I could handle. I hired a few part-time assistants to help with the workload, and it felt incredible to see my vision manifesting in such a tangible way. Meanwhile, Melissa would occasionally reach out, trying to maintain a semblance of friendship or connection. I remained polite but distant. I didn't want to fall into old patterns or allow her back into my life. I was proud of the person I had become, and I needed to protect that progress. But the more she tried to engage, the more I realized that she was genuinely curious about the new me. She wanted to know what I was doing, how I was succeeding, and perhaps she felt a tinge of regret. There were moments when I caught her looking at me with an expression that made me question whether she truly understood the gravity of her actions. One evening, while reflecting on my journey, I thought about the lessons I had learned through this experience. I realized that I had grown stronger, more self-sufficient, and more aware of my worth. I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. As I prepared for another big event, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I was ready to take on whatever challenges lay ahead, armed with the knowledge that I had come out of the other side of betrayal stronger and more determined than ever. I had transformed my pain into power, and there was no looking back. Little did I know, the next chapter of my journey would bring even more surprises, and the twists of fate were far from over. As the months rolled on, my event planning business flourished. Each success brought new opportunities, and I found myself fully immersed in a rhythm that felt exhilarating. I was no longer the man who had been beaten down by betrayal. I was a force to be reckoned with. My calendar was packed with events, and I was starting to gain recognition in the local community. I would often receive messages from clients thanking me for making their special days unforgettable. One evening, after a particularly successful wedding, I received a call from a friend of mine, Mark. He had heard about my recent accomplishments and wanted to catch up over drinks. I agreed, eager to share my journey and celebrate the changes in my life. As we settled into our seats at a trendy bar downtown, I couldn't help but share the excitement of my newfound success. "It's crazy, man. I never thought I'd be doing what I love and actually making a living from it," I said, taking a sip of my drink. Mark grinned, his eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "You deserve it, Jason. I always knew you had it in you. And honestly, after everything that happened with Melissa, I'm glad to see you thriving." His comment struck a chord. I had managed to distance myself from the pain and resentment, but hearing someone acknowledge the journey I had taken made it feel all the more real. Yeah, it was a wake-up call, I admitted. I realized that I needed to invest in myself and my happiness. As the night wore on, we talked about everything: life, relationships, and future goals. I felt a sense of camaraderie with Mark, and it was refreshing to share my story with someone who understood the struggles I had faced. But as I returned home later that night, I felt a familiar tug of unease. Despite my success, there were still moments when I couldn't shake the memories of my past with Melissa. I often found myself wondering how she was doing and what she thought of my transformation. Did she feel regret? Did she ever wish she had made different choices? Days turned into weeks and my business continued to grow, but I felt a change in the air. I could sense that Melissa was trying to reinsert herself into my life, not just as an acquaintance, but perhaps as something more. She would reach out occasionally, asking if I would like to grab coffee or catch up. At first, I politely declined. I was still grappling with the emotional aftermath of our separation, and I didn't want to confuse my feelings or jeopardize the progress I had made. Yet, there was a part of me that was curious. I wanted to see the woman who had shattered my heart and was now watching from the sidelines as I built a new life. One weekend, I found myself at a local event for charity, a cause Melissa had always been passionate about. I had been hired to plan the event, and as I walked through the venue, I spotted her in the crowd, mingling with guests. My heart raced as I approached her. "Melissa," I said, my voice steady despite the surge of emotions. She turned, surprise flashing in her eyes. "Jason, wow, you're the one behind this event. It looks amazing," she exclaimed, her genuine appreciation evident. "Thanks. I'm really proud of how it's come together," I replied, trying to keep the conversation light. We fell into a casual rhythm, discussing the event and the charity's impact. I could see the spark in her eyes as she spoke passionately about the cause, and for a moment I was reminded of the woman I had fallen in love with. But the memories were bittersweet. I couldn't forget the betrayal that had shattered our relationship. As the evening progressed, we found ourselves standing together, watching the guests interact. Melissa turned to me, her expression serious. "I've been thinking about us, Jason. I know things ended badly, and I'm so sorry for how I treated you. I never meant to hurt you, I was lost." Her words hung in the air and I could feel my heart pounding. Part of me wanted to hear her out to understand her perspective, but the scars from our past were still fresh. "It was a difficult time for both of us," I replied cautiously. "I had to find my way after everything that happened." "I get that," she said, her eyes searching mine. "But I want to make things right. I've changed and I'd love the chance to show you that. Can we start over?" I felt a mixture of emotions swirling within me, anger, sadness, hope. Could I really open myself up to her again? Could I trust her after everything? I had worked so hard to rebuild my life, and the idea of allowing her back into it felt like a gamble. "I don't know, Melissa," I finally said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "It's hard for me to forget what happened. I've built something new for myself, and I'm not sure if we can go back to the way things were." She looked down, disappointment washing over her features. "I understand. I just wanted you to know that I'm here if you ever want to talk. I miss you, Jason." Her words struck a chord and I felt a surge of conflicting emotions. I had finally found my footing, but the thought of her missing me tugged at my heart. I could see how sincere she was, but I also knew that opening that door again could lead to heartbreak. I didn't want to be vulnerable again, not after everything I had fought to achieve. "Let's take it one step at a time," I said slowly. "Maybe we can talk more, but I need time to figure things out." She nodded, her eyes filled with a glimmer of hope. "I'll respect that. Just know that I'm here when you're ready." As we parted ways that evening, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. I had confronted my past and opened the door to a potential future, but I was still uncertain of what lay ahead. Could we really rebuild what was lost? Over the next few days, I reflected on the conversation with Melissa. While I was proud of how far I had come, I couldn't ignore the flicker of consideration she had sparked within me. It was a complex situation, and I realized that I had to navigate it carefully. In the back of my mind, I wondered if my drive for success was a way to distract myself from the emotional turmoil that still pulsed beneath the surface. I was on a path to self-discovery, but I couldn't deny the memories of love and betrayal that intertwined with my journey. As I immersed myself in new projects and continued to expand my business, I began to realize that life was unpredictable. The choices I made now would shape my future, and the connection with Melissa had opened my eyes to the possibilities of forgiveness and understanding. With this newfound perspective, I felt ready to embrace whatever came next, knowing that my story wasn't just about revenge or success. It was about growth, healing, and the understanding that sometimes the past is worth revisiting, even if it's painful. I was determined to find clarity amidst the chaos and to ultimately create a life that was not only successful but also fulfilling on a deeper level. After my conversation with Melissa, I found myself in a state of reflection. It was clear that I had a lot on my plate, both in terms of my growing business and the shifting dynamics with her. Every time I thought about the past, I felt a wave of anger mixed with sadness. But I also understood that this was an opportunity for growth, and I had to decide how I wanted to move forward. Over the next few weeks, I kept my distance from Melissa while focusing intensely on my business. The corporate events and weddings kept rolling in, and I was gaining a reputation as a go-to planner in the area. I was proud of what I had built. However, the more successful I became, the more I grappled with the emotional remnants of my relationship with Melissa. One evening, as I was putting the finishing touches on a bridal shower I had organized, I received a text from Melissa. She wanted to meet up again, this time for dinner. My first instinct was to decline, but something nudged at me to consider it. Perhaps we could find closure or begin to rebuild the trust that had been shattered. "Sure, I can do dinner," I typed back, hesitating before hitting send. I could feel my heart racing, a mix of apprehension and curiosity flooding my mind. The following Friday, we met at a cozy restaurant downtown. As soon as I walked in, I spotted her at a table, looking both nervous and hopeful. She was dressed casually but elegantly, and for a moment I was reminded of how much I had once adored her. But that admiration was quickly tempered by the memories of betrayal that followed. "Hey Jason, I'm so glad you came," she said, standing to greet me with a warm smile. "I've missed this us." I swallowed hard, sitting down across from her. "Yeah, it feels a bit surreal, doesn't it?" "It really does." She fiddled with her napkin, her gaze dropping for a moment. "I've been doing a lot of thinking since we last talked. I wanted to apologize again. I know saying sorry doesn't change anything, but I hope you can understand how much I regret what happened." Her sincerity tugged at my heartstrings, but I couldn't allow myself to be swept up in her words too easily. "Melissa, I appreciate that, but it's hard to just forget everything. I invested so much in our marriage, and it felt like you shattered that without a second thought." "I know," she admitted, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I was selfish, and I didn't realize until it was too late. I've been working on myself, trying to figure out who I am without you. I've changed, Jason. I don't want to lose you again." I looked at her, searching for any sign of genuineness. "What do you want from me, Melissa? Do you want to get back together?" She paused, her expression shifting to one of vulnerability. "I want to be honest with you, if you're open to it. I'd like to see if we can rebuild something. I've realized that I took you for granted, and I don't want to make that mistake again. But I also understand if you don't feel the same way." Her words sent a jolt through me. Part of me wanted to yell at her for the pain she caused, yet another part of me was curious about the possibility of reconciliation. I had worked hard to find my identity outside of our relationship, but I couldn't deny that there was still a flicker of love buried beneath my anger. "Melissa, I've been through a lot over the past year. I've transformed my pain into something positive, and I don't want to lose that progress," I replied carefully. "I understand. I just want the chance to show you that I can be the partner you deserve," she said earnestly. We talked for hours, diving deep into our feelings, fears, and aspirations. It felt like a weight had been lifted, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe we could move past the hurt if we both committed to being open and honest, but there was still a nagging doubt in my mind. Could I truly trust her again? As the evening came to a close, I found myself torn. I wanted to believe in her sincerity, but I had been burned before. "Let's take this slow," I said finally. "I'm not ready to jump back into anything, but I'm open to seeing where this goes." "Thank you, Jason," she replied, her face lighting up with relief. "I promise I won't let you down this time." I wanted to believe her, but trust was a fragile thing, easily broken and hard to rebuild. As I left the restaurant, I couldn't shake the feeling of uncertainty that lingered. I had opened the door to the possibility of a second chance, but I knew I had to protect myself. The following weeks were a mix of excitement and apprehension. We started hanging out more frequently, cautiously navigating our way through the awkwardness of our past. I found myself smiling more often, laughing with her in a way I hadn't felt in ages. Yet, every time I would glance at her, I would remember the hurt she had caused. One evening, as we watched a movie at my place, she turned to me, her expression serious. "Jason, I want to be transparent with you. I've been seeing a therapist to work through my issues, and I want to make sure you're aware of that. I don't want to hide anything from you." I nodded, impressed by her willingness to confront her demons. "That's a good step, Melissa. I think it's important for both of us to focus on our growth." "Exactly," she replied, her eyes searching mine. "I don't want you to feel like you have to carry the weight of our past. I'm committed to doing the work, and I hope you'll see that." As weeks turned into months, I found myself warming to the idea of us again. We were taking things slowly, and it felt different this time. I was more guarded, but I was also more aware of my own needs. I continued to pour my energy into my business, but I also made time for us. We explored new restaurants, attended concerts, and even began collaborating on event ideas. It was exhilarating to see her passion reignited, and I could feel the connection between us starting to grow. But as we grew closer, I couldn't ignore the lingering doubts. I knew that trust would take time to rebuild, and I was still grappling with the emotional scars of our past. I wondered if we could truly make it work, or if we were simply playing a dangerous game of rehashing old wounds. One night, as we sat on my couch, I turned to her with a heavy heart. "Melissa, I need to be honest with you. I want this to work, but I'm still scared. I don't want to invest my heart again only to get hurt." She reached for my hand, squeezing it gently. "I understand, Jason. I'm scared too, but I promise you I'm here for the long haul. I want to prove to you that I'm committed to making this work." In that moment, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe there was a path forward for us, a chance to rebuild what had been lost. But I also knew that it would take time, patience, and a lot of hard work on both our parts. As I closed my eyes that night, I felt a mix of uncertainty and hope swirling within me. I was ready to take this leap, but I also understood that it was a risk. Life was unpredictable and there were no guarantees, but I was willing to try, one step at a time, knowing that I had already come so far on my journey of self-discovery and healing. The future remained uncertain, but it felt like the start of a new chapter, one that could hold the potential for forgiveness, growth, and perhaps even a rekindled love. As I continued to navigate my rekindled relationship with Melissa, I found myself oscillating between hope and trepidation. The past year had been tumultuous, and while I was beginning to trust her again, I also knew that I needed to protect my heart. We were taking things slow, and while it felt right, I still felt the specter of our history looming over us. Months rolled by, and with each passing day, I noticed changes in both of us. We were both putting in the effort to communicate openly, and our time together was filled with laughter and genuine connection. Melissa had begun to show me a side of herself that I had missed, the woman who was passionate about her work and eager to support my ambitions. I could see her effort to be a better partner, and it filled me with cautious optimism. One day, I received an email that changed everything. A high-profile client had reached out to me for an event that would put my business on the map. It was a charity gala featuring a well-known celebrity, and if I successfully pulled it off, it could elevate my reputation to a whole new level. I couldn't contain my excitement, and I immediately shared the news with Melissa. "Jason, that's amazing," she exclaimed, her face lighting up. "You've worked so hard for this. You deserve it." As I shared my vision for the gala, I noticed how engaged she was, offering her own ideas and insights. For the first time in a while, I felt that spark of collaboration between us. It was exhilarating, and I realized how much I wanted her by my side during this pivotal moment. "Would you want to help me plan it?" I asked, my pulse quickening at the thought of us working together. "I think we could make a great team." Melissa looked at me, surprise evident in her eyes. "Really? You want me to be involved?" "Yeah, I do. I trust your instincts, and I think this could be a great opportunity for both of us, I replied, feeling a swell of confidence. Her face broke into a smile, and in that moment I felt a rush of hope. Maybe we were truly on the path to rebuilding what we had lost. Together, we dove into planning the gala, brainstorming themes, selecting vendors, and organizing every detail. The excitement in the air was palpable, and it felt amazing to share this journey with her. As the event drew closer, we faced numerous challenges, last-minute changes, vendor conflicts, and unexpected hurdles. But each time we encountered a problem, we tackled it together, leaning on one another for support. I could see the trust building between us, and with it came a renewed sense of partnership. On the night of the gala, I arrived at the venue with a mix of nerves and excitement. The space had been transformed into an elegant affair, with stunning decor, beautiful lighting, and a buzzing energy that filled the room. I felt a surge of pride as I surveyed my work alongside Melissa, who looked radiant in her formal attire. "You did it, Jason. This is incredible," she said, her voice filled with admiration. "Thank you, but it's really a team effort. I couldn't have done this without you," I replied, my heart swelling with gratitude. As the guests began to arrive, I felt the adrenaline kicking in. I moved through the crowd, greeting clients and mingling while ensuring everything went smoothly. Moments later, I spotted Melissa chatting with some guests, her laughter ringing out like music. I marveled at how far we'd come, and I felt a sense of warmth knowing she was by my side. As the evening progressed, everything fell into place perfectly. The charity raised significant funds, and the celebrity appearance was a hit. I was elated, not just because of the event's success, but because I felt like I had reclaimed my life and my dreams. At the end of the night, after all the guests had departed and we were left in the aftermath of our triumph, I turned to Melissa. "We did it," I said, a wide smile on my face. "This was a huge success, and it's all thanks to you." She beamed back at me, her eyes sparkling with shared joy. "I can't believe we pulled it off. I'm so proud of us." As the adrenaline began to fade, I felt my heart pounding for a different reason. "Melissa," I said, taking a step closer, "I want to talk about us. This whole experience has shown me how much we can achieve together. I know we have a long way to go, but I feel like we're on the right path." She looked at me with a mix of hope and apprehension. "I feel the same way, Jason. I know I've made mistakes, but I'm committed to showing you that I can be the partner you deserve." I nodded, feeling a wave of emotion. "I believe we can make this work, but it's going to take time and effort from both of us. We need to keep communicating and being honest." "Absolutely," she agreed, her voice steady. "I want us to grow together, to be stronger than we were before." In that moment, I felt a sense of clarity wash over me. The road ahead would not be without its challenges, but I was willing to take the leap of faith. I was ready to rebuild our relationship, but this time it would be on a foundation of trust, understanding, and mutual respect. As we shared a quiet moment, I felt a flicker of the love that had once drawn us together. It was different now, tempered by the lessons learned through pain and betrayal, but infused with the hope of new beginnings. "I'm grateful for this second chance," I said softly, looking into her eyes. "Me too, Jason. I won't let you down this time," she replied, her sincerity shining through. And as we stood together in the glow of the aftermath of our success, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. Life was unpredictable, but I knew one thing for certain. I was ready to embrace whatever came next, knowing that I had forged a path of resilience, love, and growth. The journey was far from over, but with each step, we were moving closer to becoming who we were meant to be, together.